This bottle does all the cooling.
For the battery?
For everything.
The car?
Everything.
The cabin?
Everything.
Battery, cabin, motor?
Everything that you would have in your, so you've got a heat exchanger here for your AC system. You've got a heat exchanger here for the battery module. Everything goes through this little bottle right here. We were really thrilled with this. A little lever here, and I can't move it right now because somebody tightened the bolts up. But anyways, it's got the ability to change. It just changes everything.
Welcome to the National Portrait Gallery. The most famous part of its collection is that all of the available presidential portraits are housed here on the second floor. It also has a unique collection of other portraits and images of sort of a variety of entities. Especially part I like is that there's a number of folks featured here who were former military officers over the last 150 years. If you're here in DC, I wanted to encourage you to check out J Street. You'll notice that it doesn't exist. The reason is that John Jay was a Supreme Court justice at the time, and he wasn't getting along with Alexander Hamilton, so hence there's no J Street anywhere in the city. Today, we're focused on an aspect of the semi that we thought might be useful to know. And that is, there's a difference between what's called a research university and a teaching university. At research universities, they usually come up with a lot of new techniques that have not been properly documented yet. And those new techniques, if exposed to certain companies, give them a competitive advantage because the marketplace doesn't generally have all that knowledge yet. And this brings us to the case of Tesla. Today I chose to open the show with a look at the bottle. The iteration you saw was from 3 years ago, so it's actually been updated rather dramatically into the newest Teslas. Now, the process that goes on is that usually every company will identify competitive advantage of, let's say, a competitor, in this case of Tesla. And if the differences that they have are significant enough, they will simply go to the supplier of that product or service and buy it for their own entity. In the case of the Semi, it still has approximately 600 miles of range. It actually might be higher by now because there are a lot of new aspects to that vehicle. And so, as a result, in general, right now, Tesla is enjoying about a 300 mile in range advantage over competing products. There's also in the ballpark of a 50% cost advantage if we just look at the efficiency of the pack and things like the thermal management system and other aspects that give Tesla an advantage. We chose to make this show today because there was a large discussion focused on the fact that, is Tesla losing its edge? There are a large number of very well-regarded companies. That the main one would be Volvo, Mercedes, MAN, and Scania, that are very powerful competitors across the globe, but primarily as the Semi enters the European market. The answer is that, to the question of why is it that Tesla is not at a competitive disadvantage to all of these well-heeled competitors, and the answer is its affiliation with technology and researchers at places like Stanford and MIT and the other sort of major research universities in the United States that facilitate Tesla's ability to get a technological edge over their folks. As you'll remember, Elon was actually registered to become a PhD in material science at Stanford, and instead elected to go the startup route, and has been obviously very successful with it. So what we wanted to kind of discuss today is the fact that, yes, if in fact competitors were able to buy the technology off the shelf that Tesla uses for its advantage, there's no doubt that Tesla right now would be in a world of hurt across a lot of products, but especially in the case of the Semi. That is not the case. So what you're seeing in the case of the opening of this show is that most companies have two choices. If they cannot buy it off the shelf, they'll hire folks like the folks at Sandy Munro's company, and they will first work to identify the advantageous elements of these products, and then they'll work to replicate them in order to hand them over to their clients. The problem, though, is that the creativity that goes into key elements of Tesla's solution are not as easily replicable as hoped. Those key elements, I would say, are the chip, which is custom, the thermal management system, as well as, you could keep going along the list, but I think those are the two majors. But, we can then get into the vertical integration is the biggest challenge. So if you want that bottle, Tesla is vertically integrated and it's not being sold. The other problem that pops up is something called the 100,000 rule. If you don't have a vehicle with at least 100,000 units produced, there's no incentive for the secondary market to begin producing those parts now and into the future when no longer produced by that company. So right now, the plan that Daimler and others have is they'll simply buy a few copies of the Semi, dismantle them, and work to replicate all of those parts in order to deliver a comparable vehicle. Tesla has not allowed that, and I believe that it's part of the reason why they've been very secretive. The other part that's going on right now is the difference between how cars and trucks are sort of built and sold. One of those problems is the fact that in the case of cars, people usually get rid of them, half of the cases in a form of a lease every 3 years. When it comes to Semi trucks in general, there's approximately a 10-year cycle for those vehicles. And in the case of the Tesla Semi, because of the cost of the mega packs that would charge them at company facilities, there's a very complex process that goes into delivering the solution of the Tesla semi-truck. So the question we've chosen to answer today is Tesla in jeopardy of being sort of overwhelmed by large, well-heeled competitors like Daimler and Volvo in Europe? And the answer is probably not. And the main reason is that because they're 90% vertically integrated and there are no copies of the vehicle available for them to copy, particularly Daimler, but other companies have worked hard to replicate everything inside the semi-truck of Tesla that they are allowed to see in terms of careful review of all photos. And the next stage, as we see these more vehicles enter different parts of the world, is you'll start to see the opportunity for reverse engineering to start occurring, and therefore it becoming a lot more challenging for Tesla to sort of maintain its distance. I also was kind of fascinated, and we'll finish the show today with a look at, there's an entity called Freightliner, which is the Daimler-Benz unit within the United States that sells its trucks. Freightliner is an interesting company because right now, as the Daimler CEO pointed out, they've outsold Tesla 10 to 1 or 15 to 1 in terms of the number of vehicles that have been delivered to clients. The largest client for these has been a company called Schneider, which is a freight company that's nationwide in the United States, possibly global. But the application that you're seeing in the video is that of a facility in Rancho Santa Fe, California, that allows them to move large amounts of freight containers from the docks of Port of Los Angeles, Port of Long Beach, inland, as that inventory comes off the water. So it's sort of a perfect situation for electric vehicles. It's perfect because the average temperature is ideal for the batteries. So the 225 miles of range that they have on their trucks is sufficient, given it's not stressed heavily by mountains and it's not stressed heavily by very high or very low temperatures. So yes, it does the 225 miles, but I do believe that because the Tesla Semi routinely makes runs between Reno, Nevada, and the Fremont factory, and they have to cross a pass that's 8,500 feet up in summer and winter climates, it definitely illustrates sort of the power and effectiveness of that vehicle. And we have not seen any of the Daimler truck samples in the United States or in Europe being forced to endure those environments and show that they can perform in them. So as a result, Tesla is gaining orders in Europe as well as the United States. And now that Elon has said he's taking global orders, that plays into it as well. The other backroom thing that's going on right now is that between the permits and installation of the charging for a semi-sized vehicle, this actually takes about 1.5 years for that to be completed. That way, once the semis arrive, we can go from there. So in this case, the folks in Norway have already begun ordering their trucks, and they're enlisting the help of the government for the installation of the charging facilities for those electric semi, with Tesla being an important part of that situation. So in conclusion, the answer is, because of Tesla's vertical integration, it's difficult for competing firms to catch up because they just don't have anything they can copy, and they're therefore buying off-the-shelf parts, and pretty much all of them are almost like having one company, because the parts they're using give them about 250 miles of range, and that's insufficient range to really compete, especially in the winter months and especially in the coldest places. So we look forward to updating you further as we know more. Now, again, behind me, this is called the Portrait Gallery. It is one of the 34 museums that's part of the Smithsonian. The Air and Space Museum actually is the most famous, and I would say all of them are awesome, but that's probably the most gee whiz in terms of all the flight stuff, et cetera, that they have there. At any rate, wanted to remind you of our health tips for today. Don't forget your 25 leg lifts a day, at least a reminder, at least a 2-week period, going to bed and waking at the same time. And we also have an additional health tip from Dr.
So
Berg.
as we age, we lose this stomach acid. People that are taking antacids are putting their pH in their stomach in the wrong direction, because the actual cause of heartburn, GERD, and acid reflux, most of the time, is this: your stomach acids are not strong enough, and that valve at the top of the stomach is not closing, so you're regurgitating acid. The pH in your stomach should be between 1 and 3. Very, very simple.
Who is one of the entities that I watch a lot for tips on YouTube. At any rate, once again, I want to thank you for joining us. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Just au revoir, lehitraot, Hoda Hafez, Zdravstvuyte, Ni hao ma, Namaste. And in Jamaica we say, enough respect, walk good man. Thanks for joining us once again, and have a great day. Behind us, you'll also see what's called the Capitol Center in Washington, which is where a lot of the sports teams play here. Thanks once again for joining us, and have a good day.